although it's already past October, which is the official designated Black History Month in the UK, we're going ahead with our Black History Month theme. And our guests on this episode are Rivie and Tolu Mayele-Tamina, who join us to share their experiences growing up in the UK, their views about Black History Month, and how much of an influence it has had on their lives. My name is Chukwudi. Welcome to the Black Side Podcast, a podcast about, for, and by Black people in the UK. Thank you for joining me. As usual, Rivie, Tolu, tell me about yourselves.
So, husband and wife, I'm Rivie.
I'm Tolu.
And I'm currently in a career transition. And what do you do?
Yeah, I'm a planning and resource manager in a contact centre.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
We've been married for
a year and
4 months. Yeah, 16 months.
Congrats.
Thanks.
I played that part of asking, where are you originally from? So
my family are from Nigeria, Yoruba to be specific. I was born in the UK and sort of grew up here. I guess part of that background was visits in my childhood, maybe up until my teens, to Nigeria. I'm sure similar to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But in a nutshell, that's me.
Yeah, so my family are from Congo. Grew up in the UK, and home has always been London for me. Yeah.
All right, that's interesting. I think it's kind of relevant to what we'll be talking about this month. Actually for a long time, but this month we're talking about Black History Month. I don't know how much you know about the Black History Month movement in the UK, but this month, that's what we're focusing on. What do you know about Black History Month in the UK, and how do you feel about it generally?
Should I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I don't know much in terms of the history and the genesis of Black History Month. It's not something that has been an information that has found me, or to be honest, I have gone out looking for. But I think it's only become more relevant in my life in the last 4 years or so. So in my last job, I was co-chair of the BAME network. So Black History Month was something that was celebrated in terms of organising events, webinars, and trying to get speakers and doing things for it. Before joining that organisation and getting into that position, I hadn't celebrated Black History Month that often. I think maybe 1 year with a friend, I think we went to like an event in the city that we currently live in, and maybe 1 or 2 occasions previously, but it isn't something that's on my calendar every year.
How about you, Tolu?
Yeah, for me, similar in terms of, at least in the UK, no clue of the origins other than, it happens in America. Maybe we need to learn about some things as well. So we, in the UK, we need our own kind of thing.
Mm.
So I don't know where it started or when. I don't remember growing up with Black History Month as a feature of my year. And even in school, again, references to US media. And it's only really as an adult that it's become more of a thing. And I will admit, I don't know if it's right or wrong of me to say, but I haven't really done anything with or for Black History Month ever, really. I see it happening. But I was also thinking why that is. And I thought, I don't think... I think part of it is also in the UK. I assume for most people, Black isn't just Black. It's like, it's African, and then more specifically Nigerian. Then it's Yoruba, it's Congolese, I'm from Jamaica, my mum's from Grenada, things like this.
I think about
so whereas for obvious reasons in the US, being Black is the culture, being Black American. So Yeah, maybe that's the thing. I don't know if it's the same for others. Yeah, exactly. It hasn't found me.
Okay.
What I know about it, not a lot, but it tends to a bit like studying Black history in school. We just cover US, like Malcolm X and Rosa Parks and things like that. Yeah, exactly.
Oh wait, so you covered basic American history in school in the UK?
Right.
Civil rights movement. That's it. Yeah.
Oh wow, all right. But no black, British figures. Did you cover any of those in like?
No, so history in secondary school, we covered Black civil rights, we covered South Africa apartheid. I think some schools may do in the India genocide type things. It depends on the school. And then we also do the Holocaust and World War. That's pretty much.
We touched on the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah,
I remember the
we watched the film. What's that film called?
Roots.
Yeah.
The
one with Digimon.
Oh yeah.
And then the boat, the ship.
Yeah, I think that's Roots, right?
That. No,
it was the name of the ship. I think it was like the first one or something like that.
Oh, okay.
It's got a famous name, the name of the ship, and that was the name of the movie.
Yeah, we've watched that. So we covered Yeah, we didn't do. That's the only kind of parts of history we've done, really, but nothing Black British academically at school.
No excellence, only suffering. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's interesting though. The fact that in like British education systems, you don't even cover the Black British part of the history. It's mostly from everywhere else, or that's what it seems like. But I think that's kind of what Black History Month in the UK was trying to encourage. But from everyone I've talked to so far, it looks like that hasn't actually been the case. But so what was growing up as a Black person in the UK in school like for both of you? Because it seems like a lot of the movement, Black History Month in the UK, that is, was driven by young people, particularly African people, not wanting to identify with being African. So what was growing up for you like?
I think growing up for me, we moved around a few times in terms of housing with my mum, which meant that for primary school, I moved 3 or 4 times, different primary schools. And at that time, in a particular area of London we lived in, there wasn't many Black people. So I experienced racism from a very young age. I remember there was a boy called Julian. He was Colombian, and in year 2, he told me he didn't want to sit next to a monkey. So I was always the only Black at school. And then in year 5, when we started going swimming, I remember like putting on my swimsuit and then somebody being surprised that I was Black all over. And sort of that's primary school. And then secondary school, so primary school was mainly my Blackness was a thing. But then I think secondary school is when you realize that there was perhaps different types of Black, that there was Afro-Caribbean Black and African Black, and that actually, in terms of starting secondary school, seeing other Black people, a lot more Black people than I've ever seen it in primary school, thinking that there's that solidarity, but then also then thinking the solidarity and then quickly learning that there isn't. And that at the time, it's very different now. At the time in secondary school, being African wasn't cool. Afro-Caribbean culture was the defining culture of Blackness at the time, in terms of whether it's bashment or dance hall, in terms of the music that was popular, whether it was food, music. African music hadn't blown up. Afrobeat wasn't a thing yet. So it was quickly realizing that you were ridiculed and said, fufu, and mocked for being African, and being African wasn't cool. And even the term Jafaican was a thing. So because you realize that a few African children was trying to say that they were half Jamaican or some sort of Jamaican, and they were being called out for it. So
so that's Jafaican.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because you had people that somehow, and all Black people became half this, quarter this. Everybody was a mixed of something. Oh, I've got quarter Chinese. I've got 1/8 Indian in me. So everybody was mixed something. So just being African and being fully Black was a bit like, wasn't a cool thing to be. I certainly wasn't wanting to wear African print or do anything explicitly African. So my mum coming to parents' evening and just showing overtly that she's African in public always used to make me feel embarrassed and uncomfortable in my teens, for sure.
Yeah, for me, so growing up Black in the UK, I like how you broke it down in terms of like primary school, secondary school. So first of all, over the years, especially talking to you, Rivie, like I've learned a bit of more of a sense of like whether it's my male privilege or even like my last born privilege in some ways, where like some of my or lots of my experiences will be different to even my own siblings. Partly because of the age gap, they're significantly older than me. But whether it's simply being a boy or being the youngest in my family, I realized there's things that like I might have just had a great time growing up with that other people would have suffered in. But yeah, so I mean, overall, growing up Black in the UK, for me, I would just summarize as has been okay. So yeah, partly I think because of some of those privileges, and also some of the memories I have being younger was being taught, especially by my dad, like to have pride. Whether it's like walking down the street and to lift up your chin if he sees me looking at the floor, or to actively correct people in saying and how to say my name. Don't let them say it this way, like your name is, and he'll. So I've always had a sense of pride of my ethnicity, background, family, my name. Like I've got a really strong sense of pride in my name. Awkwardly so sometimes, but like. So I've had that. So that's kind of been my shield to some things where I've never been embarrassed of my name. It's been annoying. So I am jumping around a bit, but I'll just carry on. In secondary school, for example, throughout school, where a teacher, but secondary school, you have different teachers, where a teacher might, a new one might mispronounce your name or not know how to say it. I'll be ready and I'm waiting for them to get it wrong so I can say, it's Tolu, miss, so I could just tell you. So that was annoying, but I didn't find it an issue because I'm ready to do it. And I know, I've also had that teaching of you have to work a bit harder just because you're other kids will have it easier. So all that stuff was in place. So I was equipped to deal with the things probably at a lesser level, but the things I did came my way. Yeah. So it just meant it didn't feel like as much of an issue. But yeah, I would say if I was to think back about any issues I've had in terms of being Black in primary school, not really, if I'm honest. I had so I went to school in I think in a working class white area. Generally, I mean, London is always hard to say because it's so mixed. You could have an estate right next to like £1 million houses and stuff, but it wasn't that extreme. So I had a mix of friends, mostly white in primary school. No issues. I remember one thing maybe in year 3. This one kid, mixed race boy, ironically, who used the N-word, and he was he said it like to me, or no, like at me, but not to me in a way. And so I remember it sounded like he was copying. He must have heard something on TV. Right. So he was just saying it like this phrase, like. And he said it like a few times, and I can't remember if I said something or another kid said something, but basically the teacher found out. They told him off, made a big thing like, you can't say that, it's really bad. And that's the last I heard of it, even the kid himself wasn't a bully. He was just a regular kid and just said that thing. So that's the only incident I can remember in secondary school regarding race. And sorry, in primary school. In the secondary school, similar to you, Rivie, like you found out about the different types of Black, and you realize, okay, everyone thinks being Caribbean and Jamaican is cool. And obviously, you're coming of age, you're getting into music. Jamaican music is the height of Jamaican music in the early 2000s. My older brother, who's 8 years older than me, so if I'm 12 years old, he's 20, he's going clubbing and buying CDs and stuff, so I'm influenced by his music taste and stuff. And it was the time where, like Ribby said, Jamaican, like, so having an African name wasn't cool. You know, everyone had a Christian name or a nickname or whatever. But for me, I'm so proud already. It's been drummed into me throughout my early years. I don't even want that. You know? No, you can say my name because it's powerful in itself. So, and I had a diverse group of friends. I don't remember any particular issues, but I'm aware that, like, as a boy, that probably would have been different for me, because we probably spend a bit less time, let's say, like, talking, and we can bond over football every day. Bond over like basic things. So
you said something earlier though. You said you had to work a bit harder because you are you.
In saying that, I was thinking basically of that phrase. I think it's a popular phrase for, like, first generations to tell their Black children, African and Caribbean, you have to work 10 times harder because you're Black. I can't remember if my dad said that phrase, but that was the sentiment. But basically, think things are more difficult for us than they are for English people. So, you know, that, and he'll always remind me, so I had a sense of, like, why I'm trying to get good grades, you know. He will ask me, who do you think you're doing it for? And I might be like, I don't know, you? He's like, no, it's for you, so that you can have a good life and stuff. So I had a sense of, like, knowing that, just having to work harder.
But then putting that together though, like you did mention something about being in a working class environment. Did that make a difference, or does that make a difference? You being Black and being in a mostly white working class environment, is there like does that matter at all?
I think class does matter. I don't think there is a better or worse environment to be in. I think the types of racism you experience is different. I think the areas that we grew up in, we lived at the time, were quite middle class areas. So the racism, it's the quiet, insidious type, or it's the non-verbal ones, the ones that will cross the road from away from my mum and I, or the ones will kind of just quietly just shoo their kids away from mum and I. Nobody will call you names or anything like that. Whereas I think that my cousins who grew up perhaps in much more working class areas, when you're not wanted, it's a bit more overt, it's a bit more swearing in your face, it's a bit more aggression. Whereas I guess perhaps that may be the only difference between a working class and a middle class environment. They're a little bit more, one's perhaps a bit more overt with their racism. You're still experiencing it. It takes you a while. I think even at the time, the word microaggression probably wasn't a thing, but you just knew that you felt uneasiness in this environment. You'll get on the bus. We used to go to night vigil at some African church, but really far from home. We used to get this bus, the number 43, and just get on the bus with mum, and you just felt, even as a child, this cold iciness that you knew that no one's saying anything, nobody has commented anything, but you just knew from the looks. And then you'll get the look, but then you'll also get the avoidant, I'm looking at you, but I don't want to look at you. I don't want to acknowledge you're there vibe. So it wasn't overt. Nobody ever called us names or anything like that, but you just felt I see uneasiness about being in particular environments.
Okay, that's interesting though. Did you have anything to add, Tolu? Sorry, before I go on.
No, I'd say it's sort of like quite similar in terms of no worse or better one. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. But moving to more recent times. I think Rivie already mentioned something about it, like with the whole growth of Amapiano and Afrobeats and all of that. It feels like being African is more cool now. Do you get that impression? You've been here since childhood, basically all your life so far. Do you feel like the way you are perceived has changed in all that time till now?
Yeah, I genuinely think if I was in secondary school right now, my life would be a lot easier in terms of being African and having non-westernized names. Definitely a lot cooler. And I think that like even African restaurants and African food going mainstream. Before even like when people at secondary school asked you, "Oh, what did you have for dinner?" Like you couldn't truly reveal what you were eating because you knew that would be a point of ridicule. The fact that African food is available, people order African takeaways. The fact that you can say where you're from and somebody knows where Congo is, and I've got a friend who's got Congo. And somebody can tell you that they know somebody, whereas before it was, you say you're Congolese, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I've got a friend. My friend's sister's brother-in-law is from the Gambia," and you're just sort of looking and thinking, "Okay, what's the Gambia got to do with me?" Whereas now you even have somebody say to you, "Oh, which Congo?" You're like, "Oh, you're educated on the subject." Like the fact that even the awareness that there are other African countries outside of Nigeria is, I mean, that university, the ACS, the Afro-Caribbean Society at my university, the Nigerians were so many that they organized an offshoot. They had the Nigerian Society, and they used to kind of go around the library, like it's trying to invite people to like the 1st of October events and whatnot. And then you'll just be in the library saying, "No, I'm not Nigerian." And then they're having an argument with you, be like, "Are you sure? Go and ask your mother. You look like you're from Delta State." And that was a thing. Like, you look like you are you sure? And you're like, why? I don't know why you're struggling to accept I'm not from Nigeria. But even now, the fact that you can be from Congo and just be okay, Congo full stop. Like and that's accepted, and that's, I think it's a lot easier being African now. You hear Afro beats and random story. We went to go and view our venue for our wedding, and then there was a DJ. There's like an open day for vendors there, and one of the DJs there, the moment we walked in,
it went from like cheesy pop and stuff from British weddings to, you must have seen us, and then next minute, like
Burna Boy
was playing.
And the fact that it was a white DJ, and then it's like, well, something about us walked in. And you thought, the fact that a white man can play Burna Boy, we've come a long way in this country. That was the moment we looked at each other and thought, this country's come a long way for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I guess since we were kids, as we said, the cool version of being Black was being Caribbean and more specifically Jamaican, and now it's African, and I guess simply due to probability, Nigerian, if you filter that down. But as we said, including myself, there's less not naivety, but like ignorance. There's more awareness and less ignorance to other African countries. And that's for obvious reasons. Like in the UK, Nigeria is a British colony. Speaking direct connection. Well, we're most populous anyway, which is more likely to have more Nigerians in this country. So I guess selfishly, that's a good thing. It does make me think, because even that story of the DJ putting on Burna Boy, 15 years ago, he would have put on Sean Paul. And it's just a shame that there can only be one. In a sense, it's like,
that's true.
Why can he not a bit like how you might see somebody from who looks like they're from Southeast Asia, and you might think, I don't know if you're Bengali or Pakistani or whatever.
I'm not sure.
But it's like now, if you're black, probably African because they're the cool ones. Back then, it's like if you're black, probably Jamaican because it's like
it's one or the other.
Exactly. So that's a bit of a shame. But in terms of being African, it's definitely
you've got a bit more room.
Things a bit easier. Yeah, more room to exist.
All right. I think that's interesting. That's an interesting point. That it seems like there can only be one or the other, and not everyone just existing together. But then I think going back to something you said earlier, that's about Black History Month. It kind of seems like it did, or it hasn't made any impact to your lives, basically, as Black people living in the UK. Do you feel like movements like that, like Black History Month in the UK, or movements like Black Lives Matter, do you think movements like that are relevant to Black people in the UK?
I think they are relevant. I wouldn't want to discredit their relevance just because it hasn't impacted us personally.
Yeah.
The only place I've seen I've only ever seen the impact, for example, of either one in the microcosm of work. I think organizations, large establishments, are very much trying to be on the right side of history and to be politically correct and to be seen to be doing the right thing. So you can exist as a Black person, never cross those two organizations or events or whatever. You'll go into work and you'll get an email about an all-staff webinar about Black History Month or the Black Lives Matter. An email went out when the George Floyd died, and you're just minding your own business, working. You're like, oh, okay, you saw it on Twitter. You didn't realize that it was even important to be brought into an organization. So you start to see it in that kind of micro environment of work. But in terms of as a Black British person living in the UK, on a day-to-day basis, or even in October, I don't get to October and think, the 1st of October, Black History Month. I don't think that, there's an event that I need to attend. Now, if you're Black and you work in a corporate environment, it's the corporate environment that almost wants to be like, hey, you're Black. It's your turn. It's your turn to shine. You're like, I shine every day, but okay, thanks for bringing this to my awareness. I think it's more corporate environments that are really trying to champion diversity in a way that I don't think much, because these things, I think the biggest issue and challenge, I think, is because Black History Month are things that are either in the hands of organizations and it's a choice, but it's not something that's organized in a systemic way like local councils or boroughs or government level to almost ensure that everybody's aware of it. I think it's almost, you can just choose to ignore that email. You can just choose to not attend that webinar. It's more of an opt-in thing. It's not something that's mandated, that it's then therefore can bring about change and education for all. It's something that if you were a little bit woke, quote unquote, or liberal, you might see a nice little link on your work email, think, I'm interested. But you can also exist, whether you're Black or white or whatever, and just, because I know that, for example, like Tolu hasn't been to like a work Black History Month event in any organizations ever worked in, but I'm just kind of like, I'm interested, so I attend those sorts of things. So I think you can be Black or white and bypass those things quite happily and not, or know of them or be impacted by them in any shape or form.
Okay.
And I'll echo the first thing that you said in that, just because it's not been a heavy feature in my life or career or whatever, doesn't mean I don't think it has any value. So I do think there's a place for Black History Month, for movements like Black Lives Matter, because it's important to essentially, for anyone or group of people that like has like a cause, it's important for them to be heard, because without them, it's because of, I guess, who I am. It's not me who's at the front of that line, but the day that I've made time to make sure I get involved, or God forbid I'm adversely affected, which means now it's just something's more important to me to protest or whatever it is. Then I will get involved and I'll add to numbers, or I just will anyway. And maybe for whatever reason I haven't before, it's just that reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a place for it. I forgot what I was going to say, but that's the main point. That's the main point I'm trying to make.
Okay, that's interesting. To round up, do you have anything else you want to add? Do you think people should know about Black History Month in the UK, about growing up as a Black British person in the UK? Anything else you want to add? No pressure.
I think I'll definitely say growing up, the Black experience cannot be summarized or contained or packaged, because truly your experience can be, because Tolu and I both grew up in London and we both went to the same secondary school, but we had very different experiences. So where you grew up, your family background, did you have siblings, did you not? All those things really do impact. And are you male, are you female, etc., really does impact your experience, your exposure. Do you sound like, do you have this accent? Because I was called a Wigger and an Oreo and a Bounty for sounding like this growing up. So do you sound like posh and white, as they say, or whatever it is? So definitely there is so many nuances and sides to it. They can't be summarized. And we might just also exist in a bubble where Black History Month isn't a thing. I'm sure there are probably those who attend annual events and it's a really big thing in their calendar. Why that isn't a big thing in our calendar, I can't quite put our finger on as to why. But I think maybe for the next generation, is this something that maybe when we have children, would we try and instill? Most likely, yes, because for them, they're a little bit, we're acutely aware they're a little bit more away from African culture than we are.
Well, what you're saying, babe, did remind me of the point I wanted to make about like Black History Month and like movements and stuff. I recognize that. So we're second generation, because the first generation has come. So as second generation, maybe we're not enough generations deep enough, which I think you touched on, that maybe our kids or their kids would need things more than we do. Maybe we're just not enough generations deep enough to appreciate like the Black British experience, like for what it is, without the significant involvement of Congolese-ness and Yoruba and stuff like that. But for the significant part to be Black British, if that makes sense. Because, we know people who, like, their grandmother was born here, so now they are Black British. Yes, they have their roots from wherever their grandmother was from, but actually they will feel Black British and will feel that sense of, I don't know, playing for England if they, they're an athlete or whatever it is, more so than we might feel that. So, for that reason, that's needed.
Yeah.
And, in roundup, I don't know what I can add to. She summarized it all.
You don't need to add anything. It's just like putting you on the hot seat, though. But yeah,
no, it's okay. I do agree that that's a popular phrase. Black people are the monolith and all that. It's true that the Black British experience definitely isn't the same. For all people, or even within a single group, isn't the same, if that makes sense. And I don't know where that will go, but I guess eventually we will be so many generations deep where this might be more prevalent to more people in one go, for similar reasons,
So basically, what you're saying is that it is relevant to people who've been here long enough that the don't have like a very direct connection to like their roots. Okay, all right.
It's some ways, but almost like that they have more of a strong identity with who they are here rather than who their parents or grandparents were then.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Whereas I still have that.
You say the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. But say it the other way around.
Yeah. Because it's similar like to the Black Americans who multiple of generations post-slavery.
But I don't think you need to lose your roots to feel that way. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think that's all. And hopefully we can get you on a future episode when we talk about Black identity mostly and all of this.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice. That's my favorite topic. Black history, rough one, but that was my favorite topic.
Actually, next year I'll revise in the next 11 months.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, don't hold to that.
Now we'll probably get back to this again in by this around this time next year, and then we'll see how what has changed. So
Nothing's changed.
All right, thanks a lot for joining me.
Right, take care.
See you later.
All right, cheers. Bye.
Bye.
On our last episode about Black History Month in the UK, Adi talks about what the idea of Black History Month means to her and walks us right into our next theme, which is Black identity in the UK.
Us, the community of Black people in England. And because for me, sometimes I do think that's the issue. It's like, so for example, in my work, when we went to have the racism meeting, do you know what it's like to walk in that room and be the only Black person? So
that's coming up next on the Black Side podcast. This podcast was produced by me, Chukwudi Barrah, and our guests were Rivie and Tolu. The theme music was Faya by SUPERARE. Subscribe to the Black Side podcast on your favorite podcast platform: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and follow blackside.uk on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, or LinkedIn. Additional links, notes, and transcriptions are available on the website blackside.uk/conversations. Catch you on the next episode.